Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. Today on the show, we are talking about one of the top things happening in AI right now, which is Google Gemini. We've had a little bit of time to digest. Look at what they're doing. They've announced Gemini 2.0. So today on the podcast, we want to be breaking down the significant stuff happening with Gemini 2.0, what Google's doing, what we think is interesting here. And I want to share a couple interesting use cases that I've seen out in the wild. Some people that I know that are like showing me these crazy AI things they're doing with Google Gemini. And very surprising, very interesting. We're going to get into all of it. Connor, I want to kick it over to you first and just ask, what has been the most interesting to you? You go to all the Google I/O shows. You got the in with the Google crowd. So what's cool to you with Google Gemini 2.0?
The cool thing here to me is, number one, we should just point out, it's so funny. Like, this is probably the most powerful model out there right now since its release. And it just doesn't get the same kind of buzz. Right, Jaeden? It's not like OpenAI where it's grabbing control of your computer, or it's not like DeepSeek that came out of China and they trained it for $16. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have that sort of pizzazzy sort of thing. And I know we're going to be talking to our buddy Logan over at Google more about this later, because it's much more about developers and what developers can do. But I want to just give a huge shout out to Google, because they have just been quietly shipping and quietly having on these leaderboards that they have, which are sort of essentially leaderboards where a lot of people can input, so they're fairly trustworthy things. Google has been leading these leaderboards like forever. It's just outstanding. And now dropping 2.0 is huge. Just to kind of give you a brief sense, let me just kind of give you a little bit of an overview here. So there's Gemini 2.0 Flash, and that's available through what they call Google AI Studio and Vertex AI. And this is essentially kind of like what they think of like as the workhorse model, the most used model. It has a 1 million token context window, and because of that, it's really optimized for like high volume tasks. Do you know what I mean? Like image generation and text to speech, all that kind of stuff. All that sort of stuff is coming, but this is the stuff where you're just dumping in huge things. That's what I love about Gemini, is just like it's huge. It's a workhorse is exactly the right thing. Then you have Pro 2.0 Pro Experimental. This is the really powerful model. It has 2 million token context window, all this like enhanced coding, all that kind of stuff. And again, where this is available, if you're a Google Advanced user or Gemini Advanced user, you have this. It's also an AI Studio, Vertex AI. So if you're a developer, all these things are like music to your ears. If you're just a normal user and you're paying for Gemini, as I do, then you have access to this. If you don't have it yet. But then, of course, Gemini also has their budget-friendly model, as they all do, right? Claude has it. ChatGPT does it. But the cool thing about this is the 2.0, I think they call it Flash Lite. So it outperforms the 1.5 Flash, which was unbelievable. I remember first seeing 1.5 Flash, I was like, holy cow. So same speed, same cost, all that sort of stuff. It's just super, super cheap. And then just last thing on this is the Flash Experimental, it's Flash Thinking Experimental. And this is like really cool. This is their reasoning model. So at this point, Jaeden, as you know, they all have to have reasoning models. So a couple of things on this. So I just want to kind of get that out, because this is the big thing that Google's talking about. But really the cool thing about this is that we all use Google, and Gemini is now built into how people use their Google Workspace all the time. So this is going to be one of these things where just very quietly, your stuff on Google is just going to get very, very good, and you may not even understand why. But for developers who are looking to use AI in their tools and their platforms and things that they're building, Gemini is suddenly an unbelievably powerful thing. The other thing about Gemini is, why were people sort of like freaking out about DeepSeek, open source, all that sort of stuff? It's because it was cheap. You know what I mean? Like, this stuff is starting to become a commodity a little bit. But imagine having Gemini, the best model, and Gemini, Google can burn money. It just can. So the fact that they can just price it cheaper, so they may not have the I don't want to say too much about this. They may not have the capability of what DeepSeek was doing with new reinforced learning models and this mixture of experts and all this sort of stuff, where they can actually do it more efficiently, although they're getting there. But what they can do, while they're bridging that gap to where they're actually spending less money doing it, is that they can just undercut the heck out of everybody. They're Google. They can burn money. So that's really cool. And then we can talk about all the really cool stuff. It's built into YouTube Maps, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, Jaeden, if I throw all that at you, what's exciting to you?
Yeah, the most exciting thing that I'm going to give them some flowers for is that they're naming this thing
Thank
Gemini
you.
2.0, not
Thank you,
Gemini
Gemini.
01 plus
Thank you,
reasoning
Gemini.
high turbo. Like, oh my gosh, OpenAI
Beautiful.
drives me crazy with their
Simple.
naming
So
conventions.
simple.
We could just please have ChatGPT 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I would
Please
be
God.
thrilled. So Gemini 2.0, I'm a big fan of that. And I know that it's like, it sounds funny that I'm like, whatever, having a mental breakdown about the naming convention, but the naming convention follows how they roll this out. And
Yeah.
that is they have a model, then they make a better model, and everybody that uses Google search, a billion people, over a billion people in the world using Google search, when Gemini 2.0 comes out, a billion people just automatically get a better model. And hundreds of millions of people using Google Workspace
Right.
just get better responses.
Right.
They don't have to click a drop down. They don't have to select if they want pro, high, turbo,
I love this
whatever.
I love this hot take by you, Jaeden. I love the fury. I'm so with you. I'm so with you.
I have the fury. So, anyways, that's cool. What I did want to talk about, though, that is cool, is specifically the reasoning model, which is their Pro Flash Thinking Experimental. This is obviously a response to DeepSeek. Everyone wants to have these reasoning models. And what's really cool, I've seen a bunch of projects. People right now are trying to reverse engineer DeepSeek R1. I mean, the same way DeepSeek reverse engineered O1 on
They just
ChatGPT.
they
But they're
distilled
trying to,
all of that. They just well, okay, hot take,
yeah.
unconfirmed. Clearly, they stole things, right? I don't know,
Right,
journalistic
right.
integrity, but it seems like it.
I mean, stealing, I say lightly. I don't say it as a slur. I just think like someone's doing something cool in tech, you're gonna go steal it. Why not, right? Like that's how you grow tech. Everyone's whatever. So anyway, OpenAI stole the transformer model from the Google researchers, whatever, right? So, anyways, they take it from ChatGPT. They build it in, and they're explaining what steps it's going through when it's thinking, but they're still not explaining, like they're not giving you an actual open source model that does it. But here's the cool thing: because DeepSeek shows you what steps it goes through while it's reasoning out your response, you can essentially train a model based off of the response and based off of how it thinks about it, like what its steps of reasoning were. And if you have those two pieces of information, you can just train a model that does reasoning. And so what people are working on right now is atop of Hacker News and stuff is like essentially training a model, reverse engineering that. So now we can have an open source model of actually doing the reasoning. And the reason you wouldn't want to just trust, DeepSeeks is because obviously the China issue of censoring Tiananmen Square and Xi Jinping stuff and all that kind of thing. I think people are a little weary of that element of DeepSeek. And so if they can just make an open source version that everyone can use, the cool thing about these reasoning models is you could grab any AI model, you could throw an open source reasoning model on top of it. It's a different function. It's not like when this is a crazy thing. ChatGPT, and I mean, I'm like obviously not a researcher, so I'm gonna give it's like this is a little speculative. I'm pretty sure like ChatGPT O1 is just ChatGPT 4.0 with a reasoning model on top. Like they just wrote a little algorithm that can do the reasoning. It goes through more steps, but I'm pretty sure we're still on 4.0 because we haven't heard any big
Right.
announcements about anything crazy. And now we
You
have,
mean like adding in sort of chain of thought
yeah, it's
into?
just adding in chain of thought onto what ChatGPT 4.0 is. They didn't make a new foundational model. And in addition to that, what's interesting is they just came out with their O3 model, or their 3.0 model, their
03, 03.
O3 model. That is not a new foundational model ever.
Right.
That is just a better reasoning model put
Right.
on top of this. So we're still waiting for GPT-5,
Yep.
essentially, even though we've had a bunch of updates, right, since GPT-4. GPT-4 really was GPT-5, but they didn't feel like it was a big enough step in improvement that they wanted to label it that. They
Yeah.
get scared, and so now they have these crazy naming conventions. But really, they're training a massive model right now. And when that comes out, it's like everything's going to get better. But this currently is just more reasoning stuff on top, which is great. And it's a great way to go better. It costs a lot more money. So, anyways, I do think this is interesting. And OpenAI now Google is now coming out with their own version of this. I think everyone's going to come up with their own version of this. I don't think for sophisticated companies it's actually that complex to come up with reasoning models. And all the indie hackers on Hacker News are just kind of doing it on their side times too.
Yeah.
So I think this is very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to get into the Samsung phone, but I just throw this over to you, Connor, in case you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, just one other thing on the reasoning model. First of all, on 5, one of my favorite podcasts, Paul Reitzer, Mike Kaput have the AI marketing show. Highly recommend it. And what he was saying was that he had, I think, used tasks in OpenAI to create sort of news of the day. And I'm stealing this from Paul because it's his example, but what he found out anyway. And it said something about like, hey, there's a release of GPT-5. And then he went to that and found like a 404 page. And he's maybe speculating, maybe that OpenAI was starting to release it, and it trolled, like it web crawled like that page or something like that. So anyway, so we'll see. So maybe GPT-5 is coming at some point, but Jaden's right. Like this is just a sort of a new reasoning model, which means it's doing all the work, not on the training side of how it did, but on the answering side, or what we call the inference side. One other thing, Jaeden, I just want to say before you jump over to Samsung, because I know we're kind of like running out of time. Guys, listen, and this is not, I'm not trying to jump in here with a paid promo, but just I have to tell you about what Jaeden is doing, because when he's talking about these reasoning things on a previous show, he was showing me how to use this $200 a month reasoning thing. And his examples were showing me literally how you'd start replacing certain jobs that could pay $100,000 a year. It was unbelievable. And I was like, Jaeden, we have to do this. And Jaeden tells me, I think you told me on the podcast, he's like, oh no, you told me afterwards. Sorry. You were like, oh, this is off air, so hopefully this is okay. He's like, hey, listen, this is what I do on my community, on my school community. And that's what I gave that to them. I was like, oh man. So anyway, so that's $20 a month. It is unbelievable. We'll have a link in the description. Jaeden did not ask me to say this, but it is so good. Guys, check out Jaden's school community. Sorry, Jaeden, I just had to say that. Okay, wrap us up with Samsung and then take us home.
All right. Well, I appreciate the shout out, but this is the last thing I want to say that's really cool. Last month, Samsung launched their Galaxy S25 series. My brother is a big Samsung Galaxy fan. He had the S24. Yesterday, he went and bought the S25 and he was showing it to me. It is the first smartphone to ship with Google's Project Astra, which is kind of like this AI feature that lets you point your phone camera. You point at different stuff, you get information on different stuff. They have a whole bunch of really cool things built into it. One of the cool things that he was showing me is on the screen of his phone, if he swipes up. So essentially, you swipe up from the bottom, there's this little magical animation. It's pretty much what I'm imagining Apple's trying to do with Apple Intelligence, which is hopelessly delayed. And I'm scratching my head, just waiting for the moment I get it and hoping that it's actually good. But you swipe up, and now it knows, okay, AI enabled. You circle anything on the screen, and it can like pull up information about it. It's like you took a screenshot or you asked a question, but it's not like screenshots. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's on a YouTube video, and he just like circles like the title of the YouTube video, and it like tells him like kind of what's in it, or breaks down different things about that, or pulls up like a ChatGPT summary of
this is Project Astra, right? This is what you're talking about?
Yeah. So this is all built into Samsung with the new Gemini. It's rolled out into it, and Gemini kind of powers it. It does all sorts of really cool things. So it's phenomenal. And I'm just saying, like, Google Pixel's doing some cool stuff as well. Samsung's doing it. It is all running on the Android through Gemini. So Google's doing some cool stuff. Big shout out to them there. Listen, if you enjoyed the episode today, the number one way you could say thank you is to leave us a review. We read the reviews. We appreciate them all. We're happy you guys tuned in today, and we hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.